Okay, we just left Brown Fork Shelter. It's out there a 1/10 of a mile. It's kind of a more basic shelter, and the water at Brown Fork Gap Shelter is dry. So the water is on down this way about a 1/10 of a mile. So we're beginning day 3. Day 3 should be Brown Fork Shelter to Cable Gap Shelter, about 6.1 miles. This will be a short day for us, but weather's perfect. It's about 10:20, and we're headed out for our next adventure. So here we go. Okay, back in here on day 3 from Brown Fork Gap Shelter to Cable Gap Shelter, and this is the water source at Brown Fork Gap, which is about a 1/10 of a mile from the shelter. And that right there is the best water source on this journey. So we're going to take full advantage of it. Right, here's a little view that we've gotten this morning off to the north, and that's got to be Fontana Lake. It says there's another view to the south we may get to in a minute, but this is one of the best views we've had on the trip. There's where they've cut some timber, and the dam has got to be back in here to our left. I don't have any idea what mountains those are, but you see the lake there and the lake here. We're just north of the, or northwest of the Brown Fork Gap Shelter, headed toward Cable Gap Shelter on day 3 of NOC to Fontana Dam. Well, we're well into day 3. We have just come through Cody Gap just a few minutes ago, and that's where the bee's nest was in the trail. Somebody kindly enough had put up a rock and an X and a little rock right in the middle of it pointing up, and so with all the information people had given us, we were able to go up in the woods and go around it. But if you're going just north of Cody Gap in the next little bit here in September 2016, just be aware there's yellow jackets, ground hornets, something there. So we had a good day. This has been a day where we've just kind of gone easy. We're averaging about a mile an hour. We stopped for a nice snack. This is only a 6-mile day for us, kind of a refresher day, or a day to kind of gain back some of our strength for the last little push to Fontana tomorrow. So day 3 will be from Brown Fork Gap Shelter to Cable Gap Shelter. We're just coming to Yellow Creek Gap, and I am happy to report at Yellow Creek Gap there is a good water source. So that's some good news. Most places like this right here have been really dry, but here's some water at Yellow Creek Gap just before you head up the mountain to Cable Gap Shelter. Alright, we've come out into Yellow Creek Gap, and there is a sign right there. The AT crosses the highway, and then there's a logging road that goes back up in that direction. Somebody was logging in there. We could hear a saw earlier, and then there's a load of lumber just came out, or a load of logs rather. And we've got about 9/10 of a mile, a little bit of up and then a down to the Cable Gap Shelter. So we're going to go up the ways a little bit, and then maybe eat us a protein bar or something. It's kind of hot in this gap, so, and there's no place to see it. So, but this is Yellow Creek Gap, where the AT crosses, comes out right up there, and then goes across here. Yeah. Well, it's getting toward the end of day 3, and I'll let everybody know in a little bit whether or not we made a wise decision. Got to Cable Gap about 4:30 or so and decided that wasn't quite enough. So we've climbed onto the top of the mountain, crossed it, and there's supposed to be a couple places down here that have some water and some tent places. And if that's not true, then we just pitch our tent wherever. We've got enough water to do us if we have to. But We just decided 4:30 was a little easy, a little early to quit when we would be ready to get out of here and get a shower and some good food tomorrow. So that's what we're doing, and I'll let you know in a bit whether or not that was a good decision. Okay, here we are on the morning of day 4 on our NOC to Fontana trip. We decided not to stay at Cable Gap Shelter last night and decided we'd come on about 3 miles, 2.8 miles further to this little place here. And all the gut hooks app said it had water and a stream and a branch and everything else, and it does. It's a good place. There's 5 or 6 tent sites here. We got here a little late last night, about 7 o'clock. We've had our coffee this morning, getting ready to have a little bite of something. There's our laundry up there, and so we got about 4 miles out of here this morning, and then we'll have some real food at Fontana Village after a while.